So, okay, recording in process. So let's go ahead and get started. So to ask questions during the webinar, this is the email address you're going to want to send those questions to. Generally, when we get those questions, we will post that on the PTN website, and we'll have a link for that later on. And also, since I'm the one presenting, it'll be a little hard for me to see the questions in the chat box, but if you have something, I'll check it before the end of the training, so that if it's something easy that I could address during this call, I will do that. Okay, so here we go with the agenda. We're going to go over the webinar purpose, important points, the program description, eligibility, these other sections as well. So the webinar purpose, again, we're going to go over the FY22 coordinated call fleet replacement. We're going to give a summary of that. We're going to go over the application instructions, and then we're going to review important dates. So important points to note, the coordinated call for projects is distributed biannually. Our last coordinated call for projects was in FY20. So this is our current one, which is FY22. So our next call for projects, it'll happen in FY24, but we'll publish those projects in FY23. And also, just a reminder, to be eligible for these particular projects, you also have to have your certs and assurances and your master grant agreement on file with PTN. If you don't have those, reach out to the compliance department and we can get that updated for you. And this is more record keeping. So applications must be submitted through eGrants, and when we say submitted through eGrants, it must be an application submitted for review status by February 4th of 2022 by 5 p.m. Central Standard Time to be considered on time. Anybody submitted after that particular time, we would not consider your application. This is going to be, it's a competitive bid, so we want to make sure everybody's playing by the same rules. You have to answer all the questions thoroughly, and if you look at Section 5 of the application instructions, not just for the fleet replacement, but for the RTAP and the 5311, those other calls as well, you'll see specific instructions that are pertinent to those different applications. But yeah, you just want to review the applications before you submit anything, just to make sure that you're answering the questions correctly. So the entire call for projects instruction document, and this is just a layout of everything that you're going to see. Section 5 programs, depending on which call you're interested in submitting an application for, you would read the one that's interested, that's relevant to you. So for this particular one, we're doing fleet replacement, so that's where you would go into Section 5. Sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are going to be generic to all of the applications for the most part. So you just want to check those out, as well as the glossary and the attachment. So this is a description of the fleet replacement project. Again, this is going to be urban transit district. So if you are a rural transit district, you would not be part of this particular call. This is just kind of the generic term, but it's just urban. It wouldn't be rural. And then we'll go over which type of projects are eligible here in a second. So again, eligible parties, urban transit districts, eligible project types, fleet replacement, fleet rehabilitation, minor fleet facility renovations, shop equipment and miscellaneous equipment, fleet maintenance hardware and or software. So I would just think of the 5339 application. Most of those projects that you would submit in those particular applications would be relevant here. Fleet replacement, we are going to be looking for a fleet that have exceeded their useful life, and we included that in the instructions as well, so you could see what the benchmark is that we're looking for. Minor fleet facility renovations, due to the amount of money we have allocated to fleet replacement, we can't do full-blown construction projects or anything like that. Minor fleet facility renovations, it would just be that. So, we wouldn't have the money to support your, $50, $100,000, $1 million projects. That would be better. Those applications would be better suited for another call, but not this one. But yeah, let me go to the next slide. So funding percentages. So one of the things that's unique about the coordinated call is that we request a contribution. Now, this is different from match. When you get federal dollars from the federal government, generally they ask for a match component. So whether that's 85-15, 80-20, you would have to come, whether that's TDCs or local match, however you're going to come up with that money. But in this particular one, we still have to meet the federal match requirements, so there still be a TDC component, and we would provide TDCs. But for us, what we're looking at in this particular one is that we're looking for a 50% contribution. So if the grand total of your project is $200,000, you would apply for $100,000 in this particular award, and then you would demonstrate in your application that you also have another $100,000 to make your project whole. So those funds could come from 5307, 5311, 5339, state funds, local funds, however you want to get to that 50% contribution. But for this particular project, to be eligible, you have to document and demonstrate that you could come up with half the money, with half the cost of the particular project. And same thing as well, there's a 20% federal match requirement. Yeah, so, and we can get into TDCs or whatnot, depending on what you're using. Like if you're using 5339 funds, generally most people, you could submit your, we would submit a TDC request and we would meet that match. Application general information, and this is just, the generic, you're going to describe your proposed project, the need demand for the project, anticipated benefits, and then identify the methods you're going to use to procure the goods or services related to this project. Especially since we're talking fleet, if you are submitting a fleet-related project, those dates are going to be very important because due to the pandemic and due to the chip shortage, a lot of delivery dates are going out for a year, year and a half. So you're going to definitely expect to see some lag time depending on where you're ordering it from. If you're using SmartBuy or using Oklahoma or Georgia, whatever state contract you want to use, or if you want to go out for procurement on your own, that's fine as well. But just keep in mind that, this is going to be, getting anything delivered is going to take some time. So make sure that you have a good idea of those particular dates of when something can be delivered. And also make sure that any dollar amount you put in there, any dollar amount you put in for fleet or even construction, those minor facility renovations that we mentioned earlier, I highly recommend that you reach out to the vendor or your particular vendor of who you're thinking of selecting if you're going to use a state contract to get an idea of what the updated pricing is. I don't know how helpful historical pricing is going to be just because prices have shot up, I want to say 5 to 6% over the last year of what we've historically seen. So just make sure that whatever estimate you're putting together in this application is pretty accurate and accurate to the COVID world, to the COVID situation that we're in now. Vehicle and other capital projects form. So again, you're going to describe the need for the project. You're going to identify the specific vehicle to be replaced or rebuilt. One of the things with this particular section is that FTA has been asking for a list of vehicles that are, if you do submit a fleet replacement list, they will ask you for the vehicles that you're going to get that are going to be replaced. So it's a good idea that you have that information anyway. But also make sure that you have a what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come back to me in a second. So then, and then the next section we go through which vehicle type you're going to buy. you would just go over, you know, what is your plan for replacing this particular vehicle? Oh, now I remember. So, and when you're going to dispose of something or whatever you are suggesting to be replaced or rebuilt, well, to be replaced specifically, make sure that you have not submitted that vehicle in other federal grants. I don't know when FTA will start cross-referencing, or if they will start cross-referencing vehicles from other particular grants, but you know, if this is a vehicle you have earmarked to be disposed of previously, or it's in another application or anything like that, you know, just make sure that this vehicle is free and clear and it is actually eligible to get disposed of. I haven't, you know, you just don't know what FTA is checking, so I'll make sure you're on top of that. And just a little bit more about the contribution amount. So remember, I used my example of $200,000. So if you're requesting $100,000, your contribution amount will be $100,000. And then you were going to go over your various funding sources. You'll give us your fiscal year and then the amount per funding source. So I know in the previous coordinated call in 2020, not everybody used one source. So some people used a couple of sources. So you'd have to just make sure you document where it's coming from. And if you're only using one source, that's fine too, just as long as you come up with a contribution amount. And, you know, contribution amounts, you know, main things to point out here, you can use 5307, 5311, 5339, state funds and local funds. And the cells will auto-calculate for you, so you'll get an error message if you're not putting in enough to make the contribution amount. So if you're getting that error message, you just have to make sure it matches this amount requested. And then other capital, you just want to go through, provide the facility location if it's available, and just describe the project and why it was selected. You know, what benefits are to be addressed from project benefits to be addressed from completing this application. And then, you know, we went over this, you know, if replacing fleet, make sure you check the coordinated call instructions, go down to the bottom, you'll see what we use to determine what fleet is past their useful life. If you're doing a vehicle rehabilitation project, you know, we would consider lower thresholds. You would just have to reach out to us and let us know. You know, again, make sure that if you're suggesting a vehicle for us to approve a coordinated call, that it hasn't been disposed previously in another grant, because then it would not be eligible. And again, this is semi-competitive. It just depends on the number of applications received and the total funds. So we would negotiate at a later date if the application amounts that we receive exceed the amount available. So these are some of our important key dates and deadlines. These are going to be similar to everybody. You know, once we get past the webinars, you're going to see these application dates, the scoring, funding decisions. It'll be similar to everybody, but key date you guys want to hone in on is the February 4th, 2022. And also these webinar dates, depending on which other ones you would like to apply for. They're also here. And then scoring and negotiations will start happening in March and April. Final funding decisions will happen in May. So questions. Any application-related questions must be received at this particular inbox by 5 p.m. on January 7th, 2022. To ensure a prompt response, you want to label the email subject line coordinated call question, followed by the specific question-related topic. We will be posting a Q&A document that'll be listed here. We will not be taking any telephone inquiries, and do not contact your PTCs for information regarding this call for projects. And I think that's it. Let me stop sharing, and I want to say I saw a question or two pop up. So let me see. Do we have any questions? What is the application start and end date to be listed in the application? Nancy, that would be You would just have to let us know, like if you're doing a fleet project, you would just have to give us the estimates of when you think it would, how long it would take to complete the project. As for what amounts can be requested, you know, you would, again, you would have to, it would depend on the project, and you would just have to let us know what you're requesting. Again, if that amount exceeds the amount of funds that we have available, we would contact you back and we would do some negotiation, or, you know, we would discuss what would be our next steps. So do not, you know, because we do understand, you know, fleet replacement costs have gone up. You know, we're looking at, you know, 125, 150 for some types, for some cutaways. So, and then, you know, all the way up to 300,000. So we do understand the cost associated with replacing fleet. So, you know, do not modify your application because you are trying to kind of guess how much money is available. Just, you know, ask us for what you need. And if we can't make it happen, or we receive too many applications, then we can always negotiate with you. Our large urban districts eligible to apply for the coordinated call. I'd have to get back to you on that, Eddie. But I will certainly follow up with you. And Nancy, yes, we totally understand the manufacturing delays. You know, a year and a half, 2 years, that doesn't even sound, you know, that you know, it's crazy how long it's taken. You know, we went from 6 months to, you know, almost 2 years at this point. So we completely understand. So yeah, just make sure you just have those dates in there, because, yeah, just make sure you have those dates. But the only thing we would ask is that since the manufacturing delay, since it's that far out, that as soon as you're awarded, we would just ask that, you know, you quickly, if you need TDCs or anything like that, you would come to us so that we can get that application rolling for you, and then you would apply in trans as quickly as you can so that you can get those money, and that you can get the money, and you can get those orders submitted. So if there aren't any other questions, then I might just end this call. Eddie, can you send me your email address privately, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, got it. I'll follow up with you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. I will also, I just found out, Eddie, so you guys will not be eligible because we're only doing small urbans. We would not do large urbans. They're not eligible for this particular program. So sorry about that. Okay. I will stop the recording and have a good rest of the week.